Welcome to the myth of 2000 words. How many words do you need to know to communicate well? Is there a right or specific amount that you actually need? Are the words that you are learning the same words that you are going to use in a spontaneous and comfortable communication? So here it is, another myth that is going to get busted today. The myth of 2000 words that, if learned, would allow you somehow to speak English. Let me start with a very strange story that happened to me. We are getting together on a Zoom call with my new class on our first meeting. All of the students are after placement tests and assigned to this level based on this test. So we start, students begin to feel a little bit more comfortable and they begin to speak up. But one speaks in a very strange way. We cannot understand him. We seem to recognize the words, but sentences coming from his mouth make absolutely no sense. I cannot put my finger on it. He's speaking, he's using words that I recognize, but there's no meaning to what he's actually saying. It's almost as if he's speaking English and he isn't at the same time. The class is getting frustrated because they cannot understand him and our flow is getting bad. I'm getting more and more puzzled because I don't know what's going on, and my poor student is getting more and more anxious with every sentence that he says. He notices that nobody is getting what he's trying to say. When the class finally ends, I ask him to stay behind and to at least try and figure out what's going on. I'm feeling really bad for him because I can see that he's really trying and obviously putting a lot of work into his learning. I give a quick look at his entry test and I see that he had a very high score. So seemingly there's no reason why he shouldn't be in this class. So we begin to chat and suddenly all comes crystal clear. I discovered that he spent last few months learning 2000 words by heart in order to improve his English and to get to the higher level group. So what happened there? Why couldn't he communicate although he knew almost 2000 words very well? And more to the point, why couldn't we all understand him? It wasn't just me. You see, just learning loads of words solves absolutely nothing, especially if you just focus on learning them by heart. I'm sure that you actually know the feeling when you're trying to learn something by heart and it takes you so long and it's so hard and it just doesn't want to stick. And then you remember it for a moment just to forget it a little while later. Yep, this is your brain in action. This is your brain fighting back. It is perfectly normal and natural. So my student kept on learning lists and meanings against his own brain, which means he was forcing himself to learn words artificially and out of his own context, remembering them for the sake of increasing his vocabulary, but not supporting his communication whatsoever. If you're going to take a list of 2000 words, many of them you wouldn't use in your own language. And even if you were to use them, the question is, which words are more and which are less important for you? Which words would you use systematically and which words would you use only every so often? For example, if you think about it, the word go will be used more often than the word chop or fresh. They are all common English words used on everyday basis in natural communication, but there will be a priority to them individually for you. So if you work in a company and you are a sales manager, for example, it is more likely that you will use the word go more often than fresh or chop. But if you are a master chef or you run your own restaurants, the words like chop or fresh would show up in your conversations every single day. So if we are talking about learning words by heart, you need to start learning words that apply to you and which would normally be used by you in everyday communication and never by heart anyway. You see, if you learn with translation, having a word in English and a word in your own language as a translation, what's going to happen is that you're going to teach your brain to first create sentences in your own language and then translate, which becomes one big nightmare when you're in conversation with somebody, you're trying to say something, but first the sentence comes in your own language and you're struggling to translate it, and by the time you manage to do it, the whole conversation has moved to another topic. What's more, the fact that English language is a different language from yours, which means there's no literal translation because every language has a different history and different structure. Trying to translate words one-to-one always ends in disaster. This is exactly why it's so difficult to search for the right word to use in a conversation, not mentioning the fact that it puts an enormous pressure on you. Well, it's also mission impossible and a way to nowhere. So, how do you need to learn vocab? And what vocab do you actually need to learn to communicate well? First of all, your vocab. You need to talk about things that you would talk about in your own native language, because this is essentially what you're going to do while you already know English. So there's literally no need to memorize countless words from reading or lists of vocab. You will still get stuck trying to use them in your own context. What you need to do is to read and talk about what interests you so naturally that your brain would allow you to remember without much of an effort. That's its natural function. It already knows it well in your own language, therefore it will accept it in English. So context is absolutely vital in your vocab learning because we live in the context of our own realities. This is exactly why I'm always repeating that you need to start using language first before you learn anything. Just grab a bunch of words and start talking about your own reality, about your own day-to-day life, about what you feel passionate about and you would be able to talk for hours about. Your brain will automatically accept this new vocab as useful, as it is exactly the same one that you use often in your own native language. Also, context has got one more superpower. It allows you to learn words without translation. Even if you check a couple of words in a dictionary, there's no need and no point in trying to learn them with translation. Just begin to speak out sentences that you would normally say while using these words. Your brain will do the rest of the job for you, and it will attach these words to the context which they should be used in. And the translation would never ever be necessary. We are going to have a conversation first to determine what functionally you can do with your own language and how well you can communicate in a very random and short conversation instead of just checking your grammar and your vocab. See you soon, guys. Bye.